Hello dear students, I am Amol Handore, Assistant Professor at Department of Zoology, KTHM College Nasik. I welcome you for this next lecture on study of Phyla globosa. So in previous lecture, we have studied the digestive system of Phyla globosa and the associated digestive glands which help in the process of digestion along with the actual process of feeding and digestion. Now in today's lecture, we will start with the new topic, that is respiratory system of Phyla globosa. So today, after completing today's lecture, we should be able to understand the types of respiration in Phyla globosa, study the organs which are responsible for aquatic respiration, and finally to study the mechanism of aquatic respiration. So let's begin with the types of respiration in Phyla globosa. So Phyla, which is also commonly known as pond snail or apple snail, is a gastropod mollusk. So we know that Phyla globosa is a amphibious animal. That means it lives in fresh water like ponds and lakes, as well as for most of the time it lives on the land as well. And due to their amphibious mode of living, they show dual type of respiration. So dual or a double mode of respiration. So what is this double mode of respiration? The first mode is called as aerial mode of respiration. Then they also show what is aquatic mode of respiration when it is present in water. And sometimes when they go into the deep sleep, that is estivation and hibernation, which is also called as periodic state of dormancy. So in summer we know that they go into the deep sleep, that is estivation, and in the winter they show hibernation. During this time they show a third type of respiration, that is called as a anaerobic type of respiration. So we'll study each one by one. So respiration in Phyla globosa. First, that is aquatic respiration. It is also referred to as branchial respiration because it is carried out with the help of gill, which is also referred to as ctenidium. Okay, so the important organ responsible for the aquatic respiration is called as ctenidium. The second type, that is aerial respiration. So to carry out this aerial respiration, Phyla possesses lung or pulmonary sac. So basically it is called as pulmonary sac, but the function of it is quite similar to lung. So sometimes we can also refer to as lung. And along with this, that is gill or ctenidium and pulmonary sac, it has some accessory structures which are helpful. Those are called as left and right nostril lobes. And the third type of respiration, that is anaerobic mode of respiration, there is a metabolic pathway which is responsible for the same. So if we see the respiratory organs altogether, ctenidium, which is also referred to as gill, pulmonary sac, or it is also called as lung, and nostril lobe, these are the three important respiratory organs which are present in Phyla globosa. In this diagram, you can see these different respiratory organs of Phyla. So here you can see this lamellated structure, that is nothing but a gill. Here you can see the pulmonary sac, and on the either side you have these nostril lobes. You have left and right nostril lobes somewhere here. And another structure which is taking part in this respiration is called as ospiradium, which is a leaf-like structure. We will see what is the function of this ospiradium later on. Okay, so now we will start with the first mode of respiration, that is aquatic respiration. So this aquatic respiration in Phyla takes place with the help of organ that is known as ctenidium or gill. So pila has a single ctenidium or gill which is used for this aquatic respiration. And this ctenidium, if we see, it is situated on the right dorsolateral wall of the branchial chamber of mantle cavity. So this uh, gill is basically attached to the mantle cavity and it is present in the branchial chamber. Okay, so it is present in the right side of the branchial chamber. Now this ctenidium or gill of pila is said to be monopectinate. Now what is meant by monopectinate? That is comb like structure. Okay, so here you can see this ctenidium. You can see it is the appearance is like a comb. Now if we see the detailed structure of this ctenidium or gill, it consists of a single long axis. That axis is called as ctenidial axis. Okay, so this is called as ctenidial axis, and on this axis it bears many leaflet like structures. Okay, so there are series of leaflet like structures and each single structure is called as lamella. Okay, now this each lamella is attached to the ctenidial axis. Okay, and if you see the orientation of these lamellae, they are hanging in the branchial chamber. Okay, so if we see again, basically the ctenidium or gill is a monopectinate or comb-like structure. It has a single axis that is called a ctenidial axis, and it has many leaflet-like structure. Each single structure is called as lamella, and these are hanging in the branchial chamber. Okay, now we go ahead. So if we see the structure of these ctenidium or gill in more details, first of all, it is multilamellated. So there are many lamellas. And if we see the structure of this single lamella, now you can see this lamella is enlarged here in this image. Now these lamella, if we see, they are triangular in shape, and each lamella has two surfaces. So one on this side and one on the other side. Now along with two surfaces on its surface, it is not even surface, but it bears many uneven surfaces. Those are called as plates. Okay, so there are many plates which are nothing but called as transverse plates, and these are nothing but the various junctions of the blood vessels. So each of these pleat will contain branches of blood vessels, and each lamella has smaller right side and a longer left side. Okay, so suppose this is the left side which is longer, the right side is smaller. Now this shorter side, okay, so each lamella, as I told you, there are two surfaces. One is shorter surface and one is longer surface. So the shorter surface receives blood from afferent vessel. So this side is called as afferent side, and the larger side receives blood from the efferent vessel. So it is also called as efferent side. Now we should know what is meant by afferent blood vessel and efferent blood vessel. So those blood vessels which carry deoxygenated blood to the gill are called as afferent blood vessels, and those blood vessels which carry oxygenated blood from gill to the heart, they are called as efferent blood vessels. Now if we see the position of this ctenidium, so it is situated on the right side of the body, but its blood supply, nerve supply, and position of the ospiradium indicates that it belongs to the left side, and it is shifted to the right side during the development process. Okay, so though it is situated on the right side, but the actual development takes place on the left side, and then it is uh, slightly shifted to the right side, and that takes place during the development of the pulmonary sac in early stage of development. Okay, so here you can clearly see in this colored picture what is called as efferent side, what are these transverse pleats, what is this afferent side. So afferent side receiving the blood from afferent blood vessels, and efferent side is receiving blood from the efferent blood vessels. And this axis is nothing but this long axis is nothing but your tenadial axis. Okay, now if we see the flow of the blood in this single lamella of the tenedium. Here the flow of blood is shown. So the blood is received from the afferent blood vessel. It flows in this direction. At the same time, it is traveling in between, and finally it is collected and it is transferred to the heart with the help of efferent blood vessel. And during this flow of the blood, the actual exchange of gases will take place. Okay, now if we see the TS of this single lamella, it will look like this. So in this we can see this TS of lamella histologically show that it is formed of double layer of epithelium. So there are two layers of epithelium which are supported by muscle fibers and connective tissue. So in a section, a gill lamella is form of double layer of epithelium, and there are layer of non-ciliated columnar cells. Then there are ciliated columnar cells. These are nothing but types of epithelial cells only. So you can say ciliated columnar epithelial cells or non-ciliated columnar epithelial cells. And in between there are few cells which are called as glandular cells. Okay, so in this picture we can see that there are some cells which have the hair-like projection, which are nothing but cilia. So those are the ciliated epithelial cells, and there are some cells which do not have cilia at this base. These are the non-ciliated epithelial cells. And if you see these two layers, in between there is a space. So but that space is not continuous, so at some places you will find this space between the epithelial layers, and these two layers are connected at the base, which is formed nothing but the basement membrane, and this basement membrane is connected with connective tissue cells and some muscle fibers. So it is attached with the pallial epithelium. Okay, it is attached with pallial epithelium with the help of connective tissue cells and muscle fibers. So this is all about, you need to remember the TS of lamella histology. So just next to the lamella you have the pallial epithelium. It is attached to the pallial epithelium. Okay, now we come to the second accessory structure for the aquatic respiration, that is nostril lobes. So what are these nostril lobes? First of all, there are two types. There are two nostril lobes, that is left and right nostril lobes. We also call them as pseudopypodium, and they are highly contractile, fleshy structures, and they are present on the either side of the head. Okay, so on either side of the head you have single nostril lobe or pseudopypodium, and the Nusselt form what is called as a siphon. So what is this siphon? We will study in next part when, or in the next lecture when we will study the aerial respiration. So how Nusselt take part in aerial respiration? They form what is called as siphon. And in this aquatic respiration, this Nusselt forms a tunnel or a drain like structure for entry and exit of the water from mantle cavity. So simply you remember that the role of Nusselt is entry point of water and exit of the water in the body of the pila. Okay. So how exactly that takes place we will study in the next slide. Okay. Now we will understand the exact mechanism of aquatic respiration. So true aquatic respiration takes place in Pila globosa. And when does it take place? When the snail is at the bottom of water, say in pond or in any water body, or also when it is floating in water or swimming in water, or it is suspended in the water column. Okay, so suppose it is at the bottom of water, in between the column of water, or at the surface also it can do the aquatic respiration. Sometimes even it is attached to the aquatic plants. There are plants at the base of pond and it is attached to those aquatic plants. At that time also it will do aquatic respiration. Yes, so when it is submerged, it is adapted for the aquatic respiration. So ideally when it is in water, it is doing the aquatic respiration. So now what exactly happens when it does aquatic respiration? We will understand step by step. So first, the head and foot of the animal is fully extended because we know that it can take its head and foot inside the shell. Okay. So now when it does the aquatic respiration, head as well as foot come out of the shell and body is fully extended. Now in next step, both the nostril lobe, that is left and right nostril lobe, they form a channel-like structure. Okay, so these nostril lobe play a very important role in aquatic respiration, that they form a channel-like structure for entry and exit of water. Okay, so in this figure, we can see the aquatic respiration. So the important organ responsible is this lamellated structure. We have called it as stenidium or gill. And on either side of the head, we have these two nostril lobe. This is the left nostril lobe, and here we have the right nostril lobe. So what exactly happens? The water enters inside the body through the left nostril lobe. Then, first of all, whatever waters enter in the body, it is tested by this ospiradium. So this ospiradium is a small leaf-like structure and it is olfactory organ of pila. So what is the function? It tastes the water for any impurity. Suppose the water is polluted or foul water is present, then this left nostril lobe will be closed for entry of the water. Okay, so the animal will stop the aquatic respiration if the water is polluted. So very important role is played by this ospiradium, which is the olfactory organ. Now once this water is tested by the ospiradium, it is present in this what is known as the your pulmonary chamber. So in this pulmonary chamber, the water then move ahead, it crosses this epithenia and then it bathes the entire surface of the tenedium. That means the entire surface of the tenedia or the lamellae of the tenedia are covered by the water. And now the actual exchange of gases takes place. So what happens? whatever oxygen which is carried out by this water is taken up by these lamellae, and whatever, so it will be absorbed. So the diffusion process will take place here on the lamellae of the ctenidium. So whatever oxygen is present, that will be absorbed by the blood, and whatever carbon dioxide that is already formed in the body, it will be exchanged through this lamellae to the water. Okay, so this oxygenated water will become now mixed with carbon dioxide, and oxygen is absorbed by the lamellae of the ctenidium or lung. And this water, which is full with carbon dioxide, now it is given out from the second opening, that is called as right nostril lobe. Okay, so there is a in current of water through the left nostril lobe, and there is ex current of water through the right nostril lobe. I'll quickly summarize this mechanism of aquatic respiration. So water in current takes place through the left nostril lobe. It is tested first by the ospiradium, a leaf-like structure. Then it will move forward from these epitenia. It covers the entire surface of the ctenidium or lung. We know that this ctenidium is made up of so many lamellae, and the actual exchange of gases takes place on the surface of these lamellae. So the oxygen diffusion takes place. It is absorbed by the blood, and whatever carbon dioxide which is already present in the body, that will diffuse to the water. And this water, which is full with carbon dioxide, now it will be given out of the body through the excurrent channel, that is nothing but a right nostril lobe. So for this aquatic respiration to take place, there should be a current or continuous flow of the water should be maintained. Otherwise, the water coming from the left nostril lobe will not reach to the right nostril lobe. So there should be a force should be generated that will maintain the continuous current of the water. So how this current is maintained? So there occurs the alternate lowering and raising of the floor of mantle cavity, and this alternate lowering and raising is brought about by the movement of the head. So there is a protrusion and retraction of the head which continuously takes place, and due to this there is a movement of water from left nostril lobe to the right nostril lobe. Secondly, we have seen there are the cilia which are present on the epithelium. So there is ciliated epithelium we have seen in the PS of the lamella. So the cilia are continuously beating. So beating of these cilia on lamellae also produces a current that will result into the flow of water from left nostril lobe towards the right nostril lobe. However, in this entire process, we have seen there is no role of pulmonary sac. Okay, so pulmonary sac is not responsible for aquatic respiration. It will take part in the second type of respiration that we will study, that is aerial respiration. So for the entire period of this aquatic respiration, the pulmonary sac remains closed and the epitenia, those structures are depressed. So they do not take part in the aquatic respiration. So with this, we conclude today's lecture on aquatic respiration of phyla. So if we summarize, we have studied what are the organs of respiration, what are the basic modes of respiration in phyla, and we have studied the details of aquatic respiration in phyla. So with this, we conclude today's lecture on respiration in phyla, part 1. Thank you.